Cosmology of Change, part 2. Let's get back to a basic vocabulary that we started to precise or too explicit last time. So that there could be change, you need beingness, you need existence. If you picture emptiness as a blank page, blank canvas, the first symbol of existence or beingness will be a dot. So you have a point in space. So this point in space can duplicate, reiterate the same process of manifestation that gave rise to it. Now you have 2 points in space. You can move and exist relative to each other. They can differentiate between each other. So that's what we call a duality. Both things exist completely in relationship to each other. From the time you go from the unmanifested to the manifested, or from emptiness to form, you have a duality already. But the unfolding process of beingness is a reiteration at fractal scales of this division, like the dot becomes 2 dots or becomes 2 halves of a dot, and they start to enter in relationship together. When you get to 3 dots, you have a trinity. This trinity can be expressed in many different ways. So for instance, you have the modern framework, matter, energy, information. Let's get back to a dot. What is the dot? It's a concentration of beingness. It's an aggregation, or it's a manifestation unfolding. So let's use this idea that the dot becomes what we call the center. When the dot is expanding or changing, this center will unfold and create the manifested space towards the periphery. The dot could be the universe, or the dot could be basically a body. The first cell dividing and then dividing again, creating all the cycle, blastocyte and whatnot, until basically you end up as a massive bubble shaped by the death process. So we have in this existing field potentialities for change. One potentiality is the center can receive more. So it's called addition, aggregation, depending on the field. The center can be taken, can lose something, or retract something, or send away something. So this could be called separation, division, or it could be called subtraction. So these are in math the basic operations. Opus meaning what's being what's being done. And these basic operations are descriptions of change. So if we relate these operations of change to the functions that we've seen before, what must be done? When I throw away something, I subtract something from me that I send towards the periphery of my territory of influence. If I do it inside, I can move content from inside more towards the periphery. And I emit out when it goes beyond what I consider as my territory, my inside. So we get back to receiving, which would be adding content. I receive information, I receive energy, I receive matter. Emitting, which would be sending away content. I emit information, I emit words, sounds, I emit energy, and I can send a letter, send matter away. I can throw a part of my body without it leaving the confines of my territory. So we say that we throw a punch. We can say that we push away something. So my ability to generate change, which is the definition of energy, will go towards the extremity, outward. So this will be called a push. It can go towards me, but away from the point of contact. So that will be called a pull, but it's still a pull is a reversed push. I pull on something by pushing from the back. Although, if I take my entire being as the frame of reference, it's going towards my center. It's going away from the center of a point of transmission. So now, as we saw, the basic vocabulary. Reception is emptiness, creating emptiness that can be filled. This emptiness has three aspects for now: emptiness of form or concave shape, emptiness of movement, or emptiness created by movement, or which would be receding behind the force or following the flow, and emptiness in density, which will be relaxing, emptying, changing the relative content of fullness compared to emptiness into the tissues or into a place, a room, or whatnot. Reverse direction, I create fullness, to have something to give or to throw away. Fullness of form is convex shape. Fullness of direction is moving towards an incoming force or a static object. And the fullness of density is contracting or tensing. So contracting would be bringing everything towards the center. Tensing would be linking things and stretching them. Pretty much in the picture of a trampoline, or any piece of cloth that you stretch to increase the surface tension and create actually more density at this piece. So the density there is inside the fibers. The fibers can spread a bit, but inside each fiber it's denser. So from this, let's move on. Let's see first what we can do with this. So I mentioned any part of the body can create a hollow shape to receive, full shape to emit. The lowest point of the valley should be the point of contact. The highest point of the mountain should be the point of contact. If water comes into a ditch, it will go towards the lowest point. If, as seen here, the lowest point is not there, but there, it will roll down. If I want it to stick somewhere, I need to make the point of contact the lowest point. Same when I emit. If I bring forth more another area, so say I'm trying to go straight up here, but I push my hand upwards. The energy will deflect. Instead of going straight up, I'll start to push it sideways. It's very common in many martial arts or movement arts applications, as we'll see now. So, receive, emit, receive, emit, receive, emit, receive, emit. The same goes for fingers and wrist, wrist upwards, wrist downwards, wrist sideways, receive, emit, receive, emit. If I use a flat part, like the forearm, it may seem that it will be very difficult to create the shape, but I can use other articulated parts of my body. So I can receive using the tips of the finger and the elbow or the shoulder to create this hollow, and I can create the shape like this. I do not twist my hand while I'm doing it, or I'll deflect. So if I receive on this plane, I'll deflect and I'll emit like this. If it touches the body, receive, emit, receive, creating emptiness inside, emit, receive, emit, if I include movement. And if I add density, I contract and force it out. I relax, let it in. I contract, force it out. I relax more, let it in more, and so on. At each point when it pushes, it creates a wall of tension, and this wall of tension can be contracted more and relaxed. Or I can receive and stretch. The same, in exactly the same way as I would stretch my pullover or a trampoline or a piece of cloth. And the same applies as we saw before. The shape is always relative to an incident line or plane of action. So if I receive the wind and I create a hollow, let's say that I create a hollow hedgerow with trees. I create here a hollow shape that will create turbulences. I reverse it, so I create a shape like this. This will deflect the wind upwards and sideways. The hollow shape in this case creates the convex shape on the other side, but it does not create forcibly a hollow shape from the top. So this is, the hedgerow will be the filled shape here. If I want to create a pond relating to energy coming from upwards, then I will create a hollow vertically. So this is very important when you use incoming forces, say a blow to the belly going down. If you retract your belly as though the blow was coming from directly in front at 90 degrees, eventually you'll end up creating this. You create a forward movement of the lower part that will go directly against the movement of the ball. So if it's receiving a punch or receiving an incoming force that's not welcome into your body, this won't be appreciated much. So it's very important to understand this. All these are relative motions. Receive, emit, and deflect.